Hey guys, I'm just making a quick video talking about the preferred springs that I use. There's a lot of different brands of springs or AEG springs out on the market today. My personal preference is really with these Prometheus brand springs. They're going to come in a package similar to this one right here, and if you're ordering Prometheus springs, something to look out for, at least with these most recent batches, is this sticker right here. There's actually a lot of counterfeits out there, and there's little subtle things that you can tell with the writing on the paper and how nice the print is. There's a whole article on another forum detailing, at least with the barrels, all the little things you can keep a lookout for as far as the fake Prometheus items, because they are out there and they're not as good as the barrels are actually not bad, but they're not worth the price that you're paying. You should be getting a real Prometheus barrel when you're paying about $70+. Anyway, as far as the springs and stuff like that, these are probably my favorite kinds of springs, and as far as I know, Prometheus color codes all their springs. So if you're getting black springs and being labeled as Prometheus springs, I would be very, very dubious of the source that you're getting them from. The one that I have right here is the or actually, there's a couple exceptions with that. There's the Prometheus, I think MS210 that comes in black, but that's a very rare spring. It's like $40. It's the most the most powerful spring you can get for an AG. So you really won't run into those that often. At least normal people won't. So here is what I have, or what I use otherwise most of the time. This is the Prometheus M170. I use this for a lot of DSG builds, puts you right at about 350, or anywhere from 300 to 350. Some people get more, some people get less. It sort of depends, but the reason that I like these Prometheus springs so much, this is the gold Prometheus M135. I think there's also a slightly darker gold colored M150, in case you guys are wondering. The reason I like the Prometheus springs so much is their consistency. Out of all the springs that I've tested and tried and used and stuff like that, the Prometheus springs have held their tension the longest, and they've been as close to the advertised velocity as any of the other brands. The Prometheus, I recently installed a Prometheus M120 on a full stroke setup in an M4, and that was getting me like 399 FPS with perfect compression, so on a full stroke. So I'm not sure if that's going to be the exact case for everything, but it was a good indicator of how good their rating is. And as far as the tension, I mean, even you can see how thick the coils are on this Prometheus M170. I mean, this is a stiff spring. It's like, and compared to the M135, I can sort of squish it up and down. The M170 is like just barely being able to squish it together. The M135 is one of these weird springs though that it should be shooting about, what is it, 120, it's like 400, so it should be around like 450. I think you're going to get a little over that because I short stroked 4 teeth of a sector year on a 416 build that I did. I was getting like 410 FPS, so that'll give you an idea of how stiff these springs are. So usually I like to err on the side of caution and say that the Prometheus springs tend to shoot a little hot, but when they break into about the right FPS. But more than that, I'm more concerned about how they hold tension over time, especially when you're dealing with issues like pre-engagement, where the piston's not returning fast enough. You need a spring that will, keep its tension and not start to weaken on you to the point where your gears start to catch up to your piston before it returns fully. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, and I've tried a good amount of springs, or at least I'd like to think it's a good amount of springs. I've tried Matrix springs. These are a little bit on the soft side. I've tried Sistema springs. Those are a little bit on the soft side. The VS Studio springs. I think I've tried at least a couple, one or two SHS springs. I've tried, a whole bunch of different stock springs, so like G&P springs, etc., just from random stock guns, and by far the Prometheus springs are some of the best. That's not to say that these are perfect, but if I had to choose a spring that I would use in the majority of my builds, I always go with the Prometheus springs. So just a quick video explaining what my preference is for springs, and if you're considering a high stress or exact sort of build, I would definitely recommend the Prometheus brand springs to you guys. Alright, I will talk to you guys later then.